The year was 12th century, or something like that. I think it was around there. Anyways, back in the olden days, this guy named Geoffrey Chaucer of England was writing a book. And in the middle of writing this critically acclaimed novel, one of the most famous pieces of literature to this day, you're probably going to read it in senior year too, he died. Today, I'm going to be reviewing Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. He was a person of England back in the feudal age, so got some nice fake artifacts from then. But anyways, so he wrote this book and he kind of died in the middle of writing it. Hate when that happens, don't you? Anyways, so he was so what happened was the book was meant to be read in what I call castle rainy days. Basically, it was a little worse than that. Everyone was forced into the castle sometimes when bad things were happening, invasions on the city, that kind of typical stuff back then. Anyways, they'd read it in there, and it'd be a long story with a lot of tales. Sadly, the guy died. So, it's not really complete, but there's still a lot there. And so, I guess we'll bring that on to the summary. However much I'd love to rave about this book being the best book ever, it really wasn't, because I've read better books, like Iliad was pretty epic. I guess it's called epic for a reason. Anyways, so what happens in Canterbury Tales, I'd rate it like a 7 out of 10. So, bunch of these guys get together, they're like, hey, let's go to a church, because churches have a lot of importance back then, and some churches, this church specifically that they're going to do a pilgrimage, it's called, too. It's a religious walk, basically, or horse ride in this case. A priest was beaten there by some Roman guards, physically, punched and stuff like that, and killed. And so people like to go there because apparently it's a holy thing for martyrers. And so they go, and they decide, well, it's going to be really boring if we just kind of go on a horse ride for a while. So they all decide, they're like, well, I can tell a really good story. But then the other guy's like, bet, I can tell a better story. And then they all just go around in a circle telling about how good of a story they can tell. And so they all make a gamble, essentially, saying, hey, I can make a better story than you. You can better story than me. And so they all, on this ride, tell a variety of different tales. I don't have time to cover many of them. But really, what's really intriguing about this ride is the fact that someone as low as a fisher, which is not that high in medieval society, could bump up against a knight, one of the highest positions there was. And so it's really intriguing to hear about them and their tales they tell, and they even have a feast before they leave to go, and it's a very interesting book. I love how many different tales, different perspectives, and it brings you back to the life of medieval days. It's really intriguing, and never thought of a pilgrimage would be that good. Was not expecting what I was getting going into this book, and I really am impressed by how it was crafted. And it's one of those books that every line rhymes. It's better than Dr. Seuss. It rhymes like a lot of rhyming. There's very few lines that don't rhyme, and it's insane. But I love it because of that. It's not in any cool hexameter verse stuff like Iliad was, if you even know what that is, but it was still in a verse. It's one of those English ones. English ones always like the rhymes. It's the summary. Well, now with the book with me, Canterbury Tales. Oh yeah, sorry I couldn't get a correct date of publication. I really don't know when it was publicated. It was sometime around the 12th century, though. That's what I know. They really don't have accurate times then. Anyways, the quote that I chose from Canterbury Tales was, no, not this year as in this tavern now. I'd think you up some fun if I knew how, and as it happens, the thought has just occurred to please you, costing nothing, on my word. You're off to Canterbury. Well, Godspeed. Blessed St. Thomas, answer to your need, and I don't doubt before the journey's done, you mean to while the time in tales and fun. Indeed, there's little pleasure for your bones, riding along and all as dumb as stones. So let me then propose for your enjoyment, just as I said, a suitable employment. And if my notion suits and you agrees, and promise to submit yourselves to me, playing your parts exactly as I say, tomorrow as you ride along your way. Then, by my father's soul, and he is dead, if you don't like it, you can have my head. Hold up your hands and not another word. Well, our opinion was not long deferred. It seemed not worth a serious debate. We all agreed to it, at any rate. That describes everything, basically, about the rest of the story and how everything is. It's them all agreeing, we'll tell a tale, and we're going off to St. Thomas, the cathedral that I mentioned earlier. They talk about, it's just for fun. They actually have a really nice picture that I'm just gonna show you of all the people. This is everyone around a table. And, another part, just kind of continuing off that, of course we all agreed, in fact we swore it delightfully and made entreaty to it, that he should act as he proposed to do, become our governor in short, and be judge of our tales and general referee. That's them saying, oh, you can be our referee for this. And, it's pretty nice. I really like this story, this whole book. There's a lot of tales. I don't know what's my favorite. I liked the Knights a lot, but that's also one of the first ones, and that might have just gave me a little bit of like, oh, I love these tales. So it's really just hard to say. The Physician's Tale is one I was just looking at too. That's a nice one. It's towards the end, and I like it a lot. It's really intriguing, but what I did find interesting about all of them is almost all of them involved love or female characters interacting with male characters. It seemed to be a big story of this, and they also had some of the first rude jokes in this book. Have to admit, they were pretty enjoyable. Next, you gotta come back next time for the next video. I'm gonna be reviewing Circe. You've probably heard her from the Odyssey, but she's coming back. She has her own book. Sounds awesome. Bye.